everybody. Happy Wednesday. Hope your Wednesday's off to a good start. Mine is so far. Hope you're enjoying a cup of coffee now, or tea, or whatever it is you normally drink in the mornings. So, last week we started with chapter 5 in the Gospel of Matthew. And chapter 5, really 5 through 7 in Matthew, is collectively what's known as the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus takes his disciples. He's been teaching large crowds of people and performing a lot of miracles, and he takes his disciples up on, and presumably some of the crowd are there too, but it's not clear, takes them up onto this hillside, and he sits down and he teaches. And Matthew is always regarded as the most Jewish of the Gospels. And so this Sermon on the Mount, Jesus giving the Sermon on the Mount, is analogous to Moses going up on Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai to receive the law. So Jesus is like another lawgiver here. And one of the things we'll really see next week is that when Jesus gives the law, when he gives the Sermon on the Mount, he's in a way reinterpreting the law and making it harder, making it more difficult, not less. So last week, in looking at the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gave the Beatitudes. Blessed are the meek, blessed are the pure in heart, blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, etc., etc. And today we're just going to continue right along the next few verses after that. You are the salt of the earth. And that you, I should point out, is plural. So in the Southern English version of the Bible, it would be y'all. One of the things we miss in modern translations is ye. Ye that you might see in the King James, ye is a plural. We don't use ye anymore. So this you is plural. So Jesus is speaking collectively, not to me, not to you individually. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot will pass away from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. And so Jesus tells his disciples that they are the salt of the earth. They're the salt of the earth. They are a city on a hill. A couple of things they're the light of the world. Just a few things to point out with that. Ancient Roman writer, Pliny the Elder, wrote way back when that the two most important elements in the world were salt and light. Of course, he didn't have the advantage of modern scientific knowledge. We know that salt isn't an element in and of itself, it's a compound. we know that light isn't actually a chemical element. But from his vantage point, he regarded salt and light as the two most important elements in the world. And so in a way, we as followers of Jesus are the salt and the light of the world. What is salt used for? Think about it. If you go way back to, many years ago, before refrigeration, salt was essential. If you're going to preserve meat, salt is essential. Salt was a preservative. You packed meat in salt to preserve it. Salt was regarded as something that could heal skin ailments. I've been in the salt water before for a long time and had it like cure poison ivy. Salt is good stuff. And life is almost impossible without salt. Salt gives flavor and salt preserves, and we're the salt of the earth. And how well do we do without light? For one of the most important things in human history, and we don't know when this took place, but the first time that people were able to create fire for themselves, they were able to provide light. In whatever cave they were living in, from the moment that they could create fire, they could create light. And light shines on our path. Light shines in the darkness. In a way, light is essential for defending ourselves. We can see our surroundings. And Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth, you are the light of the world. And one thing about light of the world, if we are the light of the world, it is because we are reflecting the light of Christ. In John's Gospel, Jesus said, I'm the light of the world. Here he says, you are the light of the world. And it's not that there's anything intrinsic in us, but rather we are reflecting the light of Christ into the darkness of the world. You are a light to the nations, a city set on a hill. The prophets, spoke of a day when all the nations would flock to Jerusalem to hear the word of the Lord. And so Jesus seems to be hearkening back to that. Now you are the city on a hill. You are the city on the hill. And the people are going to hear the word of the Lord through you. You're the salt of the earth. And what would life be like without salt? You are the light of the world. What would life be like without light? And Jesus said that he didn't come to abolish the law or the prophets, but rather he came to fulfill them. Not an iota, not a dot will pass away. Iota is one of the Greek letters that's equivalent to letter I. I'm thinking by the dot or jot, he's referring to a Hebrew letter yod, which is almost like an apostrophe. So not even the smallest letters in the law will pass away. Jesus isn't coming to abolish any of them, but he's coming to fulfill them. He's coming to fulfill the law and the prophets. He's coming to reinterpret the law and the prophets, not to make them more easy, not to make them easier, but to apply them, and to apply them to our hearts and our lives. And in doing so, will make them more difficult. So So we are supposed to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. I think too commonly we as believers, we act and we think just like everybody else, and we blend in. And we are not called to blend into society. We're not called to do that. If we are blending in, looking like everybody else, and acting just like everybody else, and doing the same things as everybody else, how are we going to be salt and light? We are called to be different. We are called to be different. We're to be the light of the world. And if the only thing the world sees in us is a reflection of the world, how will they get to Christ? We are to reflect the light of Christ into the darkness of the world, so the world through us can get to Christ. We are salt and light. That's what we are called to be. That's what we are made to be. Several years ago, we were out at the Outer Banks. You know, it's our happy place. And while we were there, the Hatteras Lighthouse was down for maintenance. The beacon was. Obviously, the lighthouse hadn't been taken down, but the actual beacon at the top of it wasn't working. The Coast Guard had to take a few days to do maintenance on it, repair some issues with it. And so for these 2 or 3 days that it wasn't functional, it's like the night sky out there was totally different. Because you didn't have this powerful, powerful beam from the lighthouse. How much darker would the world be if we weren't in it? If we disappeared from the world today, would the world be appreciably darker? We are called, my friends, to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world, a city on a hill that the rest of the world come to hear the word of the Lord. That's what we are called to be. We're not called to blend in and be like everybody else. We are supposed to be different. We're supposed to be holy. So that in us and through us, others can see a reflection of Christ. So that's a good word for a Wednesday morning. Have a great rest of your day.